I don't like G-Shock, but I had to buy this one. I was never a big G-Shock fan. I always kind of knew I'd maybe get one, and that would be it, the one and done G-Shock, but they never really appealed to me, so I never actually went ahead and bought one. Until now, that is. Now, why did I buy this particular G-Shock despite not really being a G-Shock fan? I've passively been looking at different G-Shocks over the years. Every year or so, I'm fascinated by one model or the other, and I feel encouraged to buy one. But then I realize, okay, this is just a passing thing. It's not really something that's here to stay, so there's no point getting a G-Shock, just put that towards a mechanical watch. But I didn't do that this time. And let's go over why. So there's a really tall order I have for a digital watch, for something that's not mechanical. So it essentially has to be able to do stuff that a mechanical watch cannot do. And it should at the same time not be a smartphone or an extension of a phone. So no Apple Watches, none of that kind of stuff. Not really any Garmin stuff either. It has to be a kind of a purebred watch, but digital. So this is a G-Shock Rangeman. This is my G-Shock Rangeman. To me, this is the pinnacle of G-Shocks. This is my one and done G-Shock. And that's why I bought this. So let's go over why exactly that is the case. So, as a fan of mechanical watches, they power themselves. So I wanted the G-Shock to also power itself. And you can get that in the form of solar powered. So this watch is solar powered. And as it's a digital watch, the whole point of digital watches is the accuracy behind them. It's unmatched in comparison to mechanical watches. Now, I wanted that to be one step further because you can. So why not? And that is with the use of the ability of the watch to be able to sync up with atomic clocks around the world, so that in terms of Casio, that's multi-band 6, the ability of the watch to sync up to the radio waves transmitted by the atomic clock towers. So essentially, that is as accurate as it gets. You cannot get more accurate than this. Since a digital watch is basically a battery, microprocessor, and a display, I wanted this thing to be able to do more, process more things. And in order to process more data, you need sensors to transmit data. So this watch has got a triple sensor, altimeter, barometer, compass. This is an ABC watch. And by extension of the barometer, it also measures temperature. Now, these things are really useless in the day-to-day. So the altimeter is not really useful because you have to calibrate it every time before you use it. It doesn't actually always know the altitude based on your geographical position or GPS data. It doesn't have that. It kind of only knows relative change in position, so you have to calibrate it to a certain point, and then it will calculate elevation and descent. I'm not someone that's a really outdoorsy person. I don't go hiking, I don't do these kind of things, but I still appreciate having these features in a watch. And that's what makes this watch cool to me. It's the ability to do stuff that I will never use, but the fact that the ability is there makes it that much more exciting. So the barometer, that's a very useful thing. I look at that graph every day instead of looking outside of the window. But the thing is, when you look outside of the window, you know what the weather's like at the time, but you can't really see how it's going to change over the next hour. But with this barometer, you can actually reasonably accurately predict how the weather is going to be. Whether it's going to get better or whether it's going to get worse, essentially, depending on the trend of the graph. That's as much use as I get out of that. And I find it to be extremely accurate. Now, the temperature, which is part of that same sensor, it reads temperature, but it's on your wrist, so it's completely inaccurate. It's not exactly your body temperature. It is a mixture between the room temperature and the body temperature, so it leans a lot closer to your body temperature. If you leave the watch off your wrist for more than an hour, then you can get an accurate-ish room temperature reading, but that's rather pointless. Now the compass, very accurate, fun to use now and then, just to know where north is. There's no real purpose behind it, but it's exciting, and I tend to use it just because it's there, for no reason at all. This watch has 200 meters of water resistance, like almost all G-Shocks. And I don't really care about that because I have no plans on becoming a fish. So that doesn't mean much to me. Why am I not wearing it? Let me wear it. I really enjoy the size and heft of this thing, particularly on the wrist. I think it suits my wrist really well. Just feels nice, rugged, and very, very solid. Look at that. I absolutely adore the size of this. There's just something so exciting about having so many pointless features in a watch, which are actually not really pointless features. They're just pointless when you don't have a use case. So if you go seek a use case, if you go hiking, if you decide to become a more interesting person, this is there with you then, and it's ready to accompany you on that journey. And that's part of what makes watches cool. Now I finally kind of understand why digital watches also have a place in watch enthusiasm. Essentially, it's like a car. You always want more power than you have. You're not necessarily going to use it, but when you decide to rev match downshift as you come to a stoplight, that's beautiful. Speaking of cars, I've got a new car channel called Standard Time Automotive. I'd love it if you checked it out. I've got a new video up on there. It's on the VW ID3. If you are one of us automotive enthusiasts, I think you'd like to subscribe. So essentially, this Rangeman fit that tall list of criteria that I had for a G-Shock, actually for a digital watch. In order for me to find a digital watch acceptable in my mechanically focused watch collection, this Rangeman fit all that criteria. And that's why, for me, it's the one and done G-Shock. I'd like to know your thoughts about one and done G-Shocks. Do you have such a thing? Or are you a G-Shock collector? Are you able to appreciate more sorts of watches? Put it down in the comments below and I'll see you there.